Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and look at this. This is another cool link to tweet that they've done recently where they're showing you how expensive Swift payments are versus Ripple. You can kind of see how all the powers that be would have an incentive to come after Ripple for the last X number of years. X, no pun intended. But today, link to linqto.com, my sponsor. You can also download the Link2 app. Today you can get Ripple private equity, and they're doing, you get $250 of XRP for orders over $2,500, $500 of XRP for orders over $5,000, and then $1,000 of XRP for orders over $10,000. I think they've got, so that's the deal that's going on today. All right. Moving along, a lot of stuff to cover. Ripple stablecoin tracker, 5,515 real USD minted at the real USD treasury. And then Fiat Leak tweeted this out. I thought this was a good one. Ripple's real USD sparks bold predictions for XRP's future. Ripple's upcoming stablecoin, RLUSD, is stirring debates and fueling speculation about the potential impact on XRP, leading to wild predictions about the token's future value. The crypto community is buzzing as Ripple prepares to launch real USD, raising questions about how it might influence XRP's price, while skeptics are challenging the bold claims. Strategic moves by Ripple are amplifying speculation that 2025 could be the breakout year for the company's native token. That's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, here's Gary Gensler being chased down the hall when he was giving his congressional testimony.
Chair Gensler, do you plan to stay on if President Trump is elected? Chairman Gensler, a lot of Kamala Harris's donors want you to step down if she wins. What do you make of that? Sir, do you plan to stay on if President Trump wins re-election? If you don't plan to stay on, what is your next plan?
That is a persevering.
Okay, then we got this. This is Tom Emmer yesterday lighting Gary Gensler up.
Where bipartisanship can feel scarce, Gensler has done such a terrible job running the SEC that he has managed to unite members on both sides of the aisle, condemning his failed leadership. Gary Gensler has worked to consolidate his own power, even though it means crushing opportunities and, frankly, the financial future of this country. Rogue bureaucrats like Gensler are supposed to be working for the people, not reigning over them. He has wasted a large part of the SEC's resources to wage war on the crypto industry. The strategy, however, has not been successful for him as the SEC continues to lose again and again in the courts on its crusade against the digital asset innovation in this country. It's time for the SEC to return to its mission and protect opportunities for every American who wants to participate in the greatest capital markets in the world. Digital asset innovation is an important part of that. What Gary Gensler doesn't understand is fighting against crypto innovation in America isn't going to stop it. He is only going to push crypto innovation off of American soil. This is exactly how disasters like FTX occur. The United States should want digital asset businesses under its regulatory umbrella and purview so that we have a safer digital asset ecosystem. Many people are concerned that Kamala Harris would actually appoint Elizabeth Warren or Gary Gensler to be her Treasury Secretary, which would only make matters worse. Their mission, to upend free markets, innovation, and global competitiveness, would destroy our financial system. We can't let that
I think that's what they're trying to do.
Happen. America is ready for the pro-crypto president, and there's only one candidate who has promised to fire Gary Gensler.
All right. And then Mark Cuban says he needs to be the SEC chairman.
Could I ask you, Mark, whether you would entertain being a Treasury Secretary, Commerce Secretary in a Harris
Head of the
administration?
SEC. Head of the SEC. That's the job I would take. Maybe HHS.
Okay. And then here's Gary Gensler. He's on CNBC this morning answering to Mark Cuban. I'm sure Gary, because of his ego, is going to probably file a lawsuit against Mark Cuban today just because he had the gall to say he'd like to replace Gensler.
You have come under a lot of criticism recently, which you know about, almost on both sides. And I'm curious where you think your own job is and lives right now after this administration. I say that because you've got Trump on one side saying that if he wins, he's going to fire you. And you haven't gotten a ringing endorsement yet from the vice president, and we're going to have Mark Cuban on later. He'd like to take your job. And I'm just curious, as a human, how you think about all of this.
Well, I feel
Well, that's kind of ironic, calling Gary a human.
honored to be in this job. And if Mr. Cuban wants the job, it's because it's one of the best jobs in Washington. It's overseeing the $120 trillion capital markets. It's looking out for investors and capital formation on both
Trying to
sides.
use that job so that you can get the Treasury job is what it is for Gary.
Now, what have we been trying to do? We've been trying to make the middle, the markets, less costly, which is called more efficient, and less risky, which is called more resilient. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to do in the equity markets and trying to, like a simple thing like saying that you can get your cash one day after you sell your stock instead of 2 days later. That's called shortening the settlement cycle.
Right.
Or that which we're talking about today, the U.S. Treasury market, to try to instill greater competition in that market by promoting what's called all-to-all trading. I mean,
Right.
These are the things that are really,
All right, and then he had this clip.
insiders
But there's some
rigging the
argument to
game.
be made that you want this, that actually it would be better if all of this business was happening in the U.S. You talk about an SBF. Obviously, that was taking place in the Bahamas. And, a lot of people were trying to do things in other places. If there was a real regime here that everybody could trust and we had established rules and there weren't these questions about whether you were going to go over the line or you're behind the line, where the line was, would that be better?
I think that we do have those rules.
So you think those lines exist? Then why do people in the industry say that they don't know what the rules are?
Look, not liking the rules is not the same as that there aren't rules. And I think
Well, see, everything he's saying right here, he knows that several judges have said he's wrong about what he's saying. And he doesn't pivot from it.
there's a lot that have profited off of the public's interest in this field, but profited without the proper disclosures. And inherently, there's business models that have a lot of conflicts. And we've seen the results of that time in and time again. Outside of crypto and inside of crypto, we see what happens when there's so inherent conflict. So we've got 90 years of experience with this, Andrew. It works reasonably well. We've got the deepest, most liquid capital markets. We're trying to make them more efficient. What we're doing in the equity markets,
I think
what we're
you're
doing in the
warming
treasury
up
markets.
to top tier crypto. That's my take.
What's that?
I think you're warming up to top tier crypto. I don't.
No. Let me translate that, Joe. What he's doing is he's throwing bones to all of his friends on Wall Street. He's doing regulatory capture. He'll capture everybody else, but then he'll give special circumstances to people like BNY Mellon.
I think you think it's a monolith. I think you think there might
variance
be
is what it was.
some actual usage or benefit to top tier crypto.
Look,
Have I got? Would you say that recently you're evolving to where? Go ahead.
Joe, where are you on what's called altcoins? There's 15 or 20,000.
That's what I
Where
know.
are you, Joe?
But you, when you came in, you said, that I probably only own Bitcoin, and you act like that's okay for me because I don't own all the garbage. I think you were thinking. So I just get the feel.
Garbage was your word.
I know, but are you?
Okay. Now here's where this is an interesting video right here. I've told you that. So first of all, let's look at this. Gary's all about Bitcoin, just nothing else, okay? Tether, I've told you for a long time, is a government operation. I've told you Bitcoin's a government operation, and we know because the Homeland Security met with them, and nobody will talk about that. So what's Gary protecting? Everything. He protected FTX. He didn't go after FTX until the shit hit the fan. Then he went after him because politically he had no choice. Then he doesn't go after Tether. He doesn't go, so he didn't go after FTX the whole time because it was a money laundering operation for his party. And it was probably created by them ultimately, folks. That's what we're really talking about. I believe 99% of crypto was created by these guys, and they've been using it in various ways. There's a reason he hasn't gone after Tether. It's because it's a government operation. You don't have to take my word for it. This guy right here, his name is Mike Benz. He's former State Department cyber, okay? This guy's no schlub. Tether, he knows, you know, I know, FTX, Tether, Bitcoin itself they are and were all government operations. Deep state, whatever you want to call it.
I know that BlackRock invested $400 million in miners, and they seem to be doubling down. There is this aspect where the civilian libertarian ideological war on Federal Reserve banks happens to coincide quite frequently with the global banking institutions like the World Bank and IMF, similar desire to end or restrict the national Federal Reserves when it results in their own profits. Well, I'm so glad you brought up the Tether situation because, you know, I mentioned I was a little surprised when I was asked to speak here because I just published a video called Bullish on Bullshit, which was a reason to invest in Bitcoin because there was a scam at the heart of it called Tether, which was supporting its liquidity and which was pumping up the Bitcoin price through the process that you just described.
So this gets very interesting because he's on stage at a Bitcoin conference, and the Bitcoin maxis do not like what he's saying because, in essence, they've lied to all of these people and said, oh, this is a libertarian movement. That's how they've sold it. And it's a bull crap lie, and they know it.
Mike, they're not pumping the price of Bitcoin. They're pumping the price of the amount of liquidity that fiat needs to prevent the impairment of really bad just policies and zombie companies that need another breath of the fiat air, right? Or the fiat liquidity.
What would happen to the price of Bitcoin if Tether died tomorrow?
Well, it would, in the short term, if liquidity dries up, Bitcoin gets punished. We've seen this over and over again. But they can't let that deflation rip through the economy or else everybody's living in tent city, right?
Hence bullish on bullshit. That's exactly right. They have to keep it going in order to prevent that collapse. And it's, you know, I see Tether as crypto BCCI. I don't know if folks are familiar with the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. It was a CIA proprietary bank that was used in the 1980s. It was propped up by a Pakistani National Front at the time when the CIA was working with the Pakistani intelligence service to train and
propped up by he said there was a front. Now those guys who, hold on, I'm gonna have to get this. Sorry about that. I got a phone call. The pest control guy wanted to see if he could sneak by here, do some pest control. Let's listen to the rest of this.
Armed the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
I wanted to finish that thought. So he said that there was like a propped up, that this bank was like a propped up CIA bank. Well, that's what I've thought Tether was all along. Is a group of guys, and I've gone over on this channel all the nefarious characters that helped in setting it up, that some of them that had ties to the guy from the island, and I've talked about it on this channel. Nobody ever goes after these guys. They're almost like they're operatives, which I think that probably many of them were, that created the thing. And then they step away and it looks like a regular company, but it's not. He calls it an offshore private Federal Reserve money printer, which I think FTX also was. Remember, we can't find out what Gary Gensler was meeting with FTX about. We're not allowed to know that.
These are the roots of Al Qaeda and ISIS, and we were training these Islamo nationalist fascist groups essentially to fight off the Soviets, and we were running drug proceeds, the poppy that grew on the Golden Crescent, we were turning it into cash through the CIA bank called the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, and then converting that to cash and then funding our CIA mercenaries with it. And it grew to be one of the largest banks in the world because other depositors didn't know that this bank's pristine status as one of the world's leading banks was built on basically CIA drug proceeds and all these intelligence services using it as a laundromat for otherwise illicit activity. So when it collapsed, it took down a huge portion of the economy with it. It was a major, major scandal. And Tether, to me, appears to be the crypto version of that. And I think that they've been allowed to not have audited books, despite being the third largest cryptocurrency currently after Bitcoin and Ethereum. Tether, which is not even, it's just a stable coin. It's just supposed to represent a fiat dollar, and yet it's the third largest crypto on all of crypto market cap. And now Circle, which is formerly U.S. regulated, and as I mentioned, has partnerships with the CIA to overthrow foreign governments, is now the sixth largest cryptocurrency. So you have the number 3 and number 6, which are, this is like the primary use case almost for crypto, is to be useful to the state to do proxy wars with other states. But I do think that's a reason to be bullish.
Listen to this. This guy, they literally cut him off here.
If you will, because it's so useful that I think Tether will rise. I think that Circle will rise, and that will give more liquidity to the Bitcoin market, and that will raise the price of it. And especially, Paul Ryan, who was the former Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker of the House.
We got to wrap, but I think we would love for you guys to do a podcast together to really rip up.
Yeah, they didn't want him on that stage. Okay, I'm gonna show this before I go. Breaking news: Israel to consider limiting ownership of precious metals. What next? I've always wondered. You have to wonder: was this the plan? Get all the sheep to go into digital assets and Bitcoin, and then once you get them in there, make owning gold illegal. If you think it can't be done, it was done in the United States of America, and now it looks like Israel is talking about it. Was that the plan all along? I don't want anybody to have my golden guns. Okay, in DAIXRP.com, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about two things. One, this, the party guy, hit that rabbit hole is much deeper than many realize. We're going to show you what I'm talking about there. We're also going to show you one of our 3-letter agencies lying real time to Congress, and then I'm going to show you what they actually have versus what they're willing to admit that they have. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Here we go.